Unity TV. My name is Amy Batum. Thank you for joining us today on this new episode of Discover Your Heritage. Edmontonians, this is your heritage. But before we move on, let's remind our viewers in Canada and around the world that Edmonton is located on Treaty 6 territory of Cree Nation. And we thank our brothers and sisters, Indigenous people, for welcoming us here, letting us settle here on this land we now call home. And by the way, talking about the land, today we are going back to the journey to discover who and what is Edmonton. And to guide us through that journey, we are lucky enough, and it is our honor to have with us today Sarah Macdonald.
Hi, it's so nice to be here.
Okay. Thank you, Sarah, for joining us today on this episode of Discover Your Heritage.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, great. Sarah is, spent part of her life teaching history to children from around the world. So now, from the start, Sarah, what does the word Edmonton stand for?
Well, Edmonton, as we know it today, is named after Fort Edmonton, which was originally House Edmonton. House Edmonton was part of the fort system in this area. But if we want to take a look further back, the area was actually originally named Beaver Hills.
Okay.
And it stood for the hills around the area. There's a couple of different translations for it. Okay. But I think it's really important that we always recognize the traditional names of the area. And
Absolutely. Sarah, could you tell us a bit more how we did evolve till having this name Edmonton?
So Edmonton was actually named after Edmonton House, which was a part of the Hudson Bay Company fort system, which was located on the same land. So Edmonton House was part of the Fort Augustus system. Fort Augustus was the original name of the fort. It moved around in this area quite a lot as they tried to find places of the riverbed that wouldn't flood and pieces of land that didn't work. So between about the early 1800s and then the mid-1800s, the fort moved quite a lot until it got to its final place here where the legislature building now stands. Okay. And then it kind of combined into Fort Edmonton, and that's how we got the name Edmonton.
Okay, great. So yes, while doing research on that, I come across with the fact that after 1830th flood, I think, yes, the fort was relocated here. And this is why, as you said it correctly, we are shooting here today because this place is full of history. This is where Edmonton was born.
It is, yeah. We can actually still see pieces of the original buildings down in Fort Edmonton Park. Some of them were moved. Okay. But this building, as it stands, doesn't actually represent the original building of Fort Edmonton. All of the buildings were torn down by 1914.
Okay. Thank you so much, Sarah, for now setting the table. At least our viewers now, you know where Edmonton, the name Edmonton is coming from. So now, let us try to find out, in your opinion, what should that represent for new people choosing this land as their new home?
I think it's really important to take into consideration that the Hudson's Bay Company, as it stood, was part of what was called Rupert's Land. And Rupert's Land was anything kind of north of Ottawa and before kind of the mid part of where we are in BC now. It was owned by the Hudson's Bay Company. It was part of the fur trade. It was a multicultural pot of diversity.
You just said multicultural?
Absolutely. So the Hudson's Bay Company employed people from all over the world. They came to Canada looking to make their fortune in the fur trades. And it wasn't uncommon in the early days of the forts, particularly out here, to hear many, many languages spoken, to have many diverse holidays represented. There were Ukrainians, there were Cree, there were people from...
They were French.
Definitely the French. Definitely the French. There were English, there were Dutch, there were German. It was such a multicultural pot of people that even the paintings that we have of the early fort are often not painted without a representation of the native culture that surrounded the fort. It was just that integral.
Okay. It's so interesting what you're saying, because for on our daily life, people just look at that Edmonton being recently with all that diversity and having all those cultures around. And now you are just telling us that no, this is something that has always existed in Edmonton.
Absolutely. Like, diversity and culture has always existed in Edmonton. Whether or not it was officially recognized,
that is another question.
Is another question.
Yes.
But I think that it's a mistake as a historian to try and eliminate that from history when we tell it.
Okay. It's so important. Let us just pause on that one. And for those who are moving to Edmonton, those who are generally called as new immigrant, I just want them to understand and to know that they are not coming into a brand new environment. This is an environment that is already used to welcome diversity and multiculturalism.
Oh yeah, absolutely. In fact, Canada itself, unless you are Cree or Native, it's been the welcoming pot of settlers since well before the 1600s. And there's been multiculturalism and diversity. It's changed hands several times, and as people started to move out west, that diversity became even more apparent in Canadian history.
So thank you so much for sharing that piece. And now, I think you will agree with me. Edmonton is a beautiful city. Surrounded with lots of landmarks. So now, if you had to choose only one, Sarah, which one will that be?
I'm only allowed to choose one.
If you had to choose only one.
If I had to choose only one today, I would say it should be the legislature. Only because this is the site where, the name of our city was born.
Okay, so Sarah just chose the legislature because this is, as she said, where Edmonton was born. And no worries, I know that Sarah has more than only one. And we're going to come back to those. So now, Sarah, with your permission, let me just share all that, our conversation with our French viewers.
Absolutely.
Bonjour, vous êtes sur Diversity TV et mon nom est Emilienne et This is Your Heritage. Ça, c'est notre show qui revient généralement sur la diversité culturelle que représente Edmonton. Alors aujourd'hui, nous sommes ici avec Sarah. Sarah est venue nous raconter l'histoire d'Edmonton. Alors, il y a beaucoup de choses à savoir à ce propos. Edmonton est né ici, exactement où nous nous trouvons maintenant à la législature. Et je vous inviterai pour de petites recherches à juste savoir que Edmonton a été relocalisé ici en 1895. Et alors après cette relocalisation, Edmonton a toujours été un centre commercial. Et il se passait beaucoup de commerce de fourrure ici. Il faudra que vous le sachiez. Edmonton a généralement été un carrefour commercial, comme je l'ai dit plus tôt. Alors, de ce fait, un carrefour diversifié, une ville très diversifiée. Alors, ne vous sentez pas comme étranger dans cette ville car elle est également vôtre. Alors, yes, thank you so much. Now we are back to Sarah. Now, Sarah, before we let you go, do you have something else you want to share today with our viewers?
Well, I think that if we're going to talk about history, I think that we should remember that history is a living thing, that nothing from the past is separate from the now, which grows to be our future. So it's really important that we look into the past kind of fully. That's sort of a passion of mine, that we take a look at history, not just for what's written in books, but what is it that people really said about history? What are the journals? What are the paintings? What is happening all around, so that we can learn from it and we can grow for our future?
Okay. So, yes, exactly as Sarah said, we need to look at our history, because most often past stories prepare us for new stories, for future stories. Okay, so this is all we had for you in this episode of Discover Your Heritage. Be the first to get our next episode. And yes, as we want you to come forward and share your cultural uniqueness with Edmontonians, Canadian, and the rest of the world. We are on Facebook, TikTok, LinkedIn, and you name it. Our website is www.diversitymark.ca. Thank you for watching. See you next time.